Hi everybody and welcome back to Cabin Creek Homestead. Today's gardening project is rather small and simple compared to the last two. We're standing here in front of our big, beautiful barn. So if you hear little scratches and pecks and you hear little squawky talkies, those are my chickens. Now in this video, I'm simply going to plant two of my favorite kind of rows, and I'm also gonna pepper in a few little annuals. I don't really know what I want from this space just yet. And when I don't know what I want out of a landscape, generally what I do is I play around with location, colors, sizes, textures with annuals because they're only gonna last a season. And then I take that time to kind of break it down. Did I like how it was planted, where it was planted, its look, its color, its texture, all those things. And so I have put a few things here in the past. I had gladiolas, they were kind of messy looking. I had some hydrangeas in here. They never really performed, which tells me this is not the spot for it. I am gonna leave it because I don't know where I'm gonna put it and it's not in the way of a currant shrub. I do, however, love these Atlas roses. Now, as you can see, they've been sitting there for a couple of days. And the reason that I do that isn't necessarily because I don't have time to plant it. It's just because I want to see how it responds to the heat of the day for a couple of days. This spot recently came into the shade. It's like 5 o'clock here, and so it gets all day sun, and roses are full sun. Most of roses are full sun plants, and so I have kind of observed from its wiltiness and its perkiness and watering schedule that I think it will do just fine here. Also for its size, this is a really great fit because I love my barn, but I do want it decorated, but I don't want it hidden, if that makes sense. So I'm choosing something not on the tiny size, but it's not really humongous either. So I'm gonna get to gardening. Now, when it comes to digging a hole, I have a few tips and tricks up my sleeve. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut out the circle size of the pot, and then before I plant, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this plant from its pot because I need the pot. That can be tricky with roses because there's definitely thorns in here. By the way, I love these gloves. More about that later. Oh, hi, ducky baby. Are you coming to say hi? Oh, come here. Now this pot is gonna hold all the soil that I'm about to remove. Now, I'm gonna measure according to the height of my shovel and just kind of eyeball it to see if my hole is deep enough so I don't play that game of back and forth, back and forth. So as you can see, what I did there was I used the pot to hold the soil that came out of that hole. I've got some low spots in my garden, and now I can fill them up with a little bit of this red clay and compost that was in there. And now I'm gonna make that hole not deeper, but wider. Yes, baby. What I'm doing by making this hole bigger on the sides, because I'm not gonna leave it in a giant gaping hole, I'm simply going to till that soil up, aerate it, so that it has a little bit less of a compact texture, so the roots can really get in there and take hold. Okay. Do you want the worm? Can you see the worm? Don't look at me, look at the worm. I'm trying to feed you a worm. Do you want it? I see. Eat the worm. You see it? It's wiggling. Look at your little feeties. Now all I'm doing is backfilling around that pot to get it nice and snug in the hole. When I worked in landscape design, I often had a lot of complaints about red clay and a lot of questions like, how am I supposed to garden in red clay? If you're not from an area that has this bright red, very slippery, very compact soil, then this might seem very foreign to you. But you've probably heard me say this before. In fact, if this is not your first video, I know you've heard this before. I love our red clay. Red clay really gets a bad reputation only because of two things. One, it's hard to work with. It's hard to work with when it's wet, and it's very hard to work with when it's dry, because when it's wet, it's slippery, and when it is dry, it is hard as a rock. So if we can just change the texture of the clay a little bit, then we have the absolute perfect growing medium. Red clay is the color that it is because it's full of iron, and clay itself is not very porous. It holds onto moisture extremely well. There's a reason that we make pottery out of this stuff. I think it's my agenda to make everybody fall in love with red clay. It holds on to minerals and nutrients extremely well. In fact, there's a little patch of very, very hard clay out in my pasture that the horses lick continuously. Now horses are known to kind of self-dose. When they need salt, they can go to their salt block. When they need their other minerals, they can if you have free range minerals for your horses like I do, they just go and get it whenever they feel like they need it. And so there's something in that clay that they absolutely love, which I think is adorable. So the earth is like licked down right there, a lot like a salt brick. Anybody that is gardening in a very sandy or a loose kind of a well-draining rocky soil, your water bill and your fertilizer bill must be through the roof, because those kind of things quickly drain all the way out, giving your roots very little time to absorb it. But this is sticky. So how do we change the texture to make it work for us? Well, over the last couple of years, I have just been adding compost that my horses and my chickens and my rabbits and pigs make themselves. We have a compost system where we let all of our browns and greens kind of melt together for at least 4 months before we use it. Don't like using manure immediately, especially chicken manure. It is just so high in nitrogen and it will absolutely burn the crap out of your plants. And so I would not use fresh manure. There's a few animals that have a cold compost like idea to them, like rabbits. They will not burn your plants. So if you have rabbits or if you have a little rabbit program, then you can absolutely throw their droppings immediately into your garden to act as a fertilizer. But when it is a little bit more broken down, some of those nutrients that is in there are more bioavailable, which is a big word for Elmo. So after adding compost for a number of years, working it into the soil when I've been doing annuals, that nutrients has trickled down into the clay. And just now when I was digging, the first 4 inches were a lot darker, like a more of a black color than a red color. Now, be very careful with this, because you might be tempted to dig a hole and throw some compost in the hole and then put your plant in the hole. Don't do that. Because of our red clay that holds water really well, you're creating something called a bathtub effect, and that will essentially drown the roots of your plant. And so instead of like adding your compost to a hole, just go ahead and mix it in to create one whole new texture of the soil that you're planting in. So with that being said, it's time to plant one more rose. Let me bring you in closer so you can see what I'm talking about. Actually, I can hardly see any red clay in here at all. The composition of this soil has just completely changed. Ah, see how much further down that red clay is? Wow. So look, all of that inches is just compost. I found a color that I really like in this geranium, but I don't know if I like it with these Atlas roses. So it's an annual. I'm gonna give it a try, see if I like it. Maybe it'll be a long-term thing. Who knows? Now that I've got them in, I have some time to just kind of observe, see if I like it. I need to put some mulch on top. You've heard me talk about mulch before. You need it. Can't get along without it. Otherwise you're pulling weeds all the time and watering all the time. So mulch has its job. Take advantage of it. I keep putting these off and on. I don't need them. I'm obsessed with these gloves. They have been through everything and they're still holding strong. As you can see right here, it opens a deep shade of coral and then it really pales out to this peachy kind of an apricot color. And here's what it looks like in all of its glory. Now, right off the bat, I really do like these colors together. I just feel like they don't belong in the same kind of garden because this is so vibrant and that one is so subtle. But we shall see. This one is just here to be a filler. It's going to kind of peekaboo in between these as they grow out. It's not really there to be its own show. It's just there. It's a supporting cast member. Well, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me plant a couple of roses. Tune in for more gardening videos because it is spring and that's all I want to do right now. See you guys in the next one. Bye.